we're repping the Arizona stuff today. We got the Diamondbacks.
Go Snakes.
And I got the
I saw the Suns.
Suns shirt on today.
Are the Suns doing well?
They're in the playoffs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't think they'll win their first round.
They're pretty stacked.
Yeah, it's like they score lots of touchdowns, right?
Yeah. Does Sarver still on the Suns? Yeah. Doesn't he?
No.
No?
No.
Interesting.
Yeah, there was a whole he got in trouble thing, right?
Oh. And did they make him sell the team? Or just step down as...
I'm not a sports expert, so
yeah,
I'm not going to say that I know exactly the story, but I think they kind of forced him out.
Wow. They're in the NFL, the Washington football team.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see what's happening with them?
Mm-hmm.
So they basically said the NFL told the owner, you have to sell this team. And there's an offer for, it's still many billions of dollars from reputable people. And then there's this one guy that said, I'll offer it all in $10 billion for this team in cash. He's like, I have it in the account. It's in cash. But no one's heard of this guy.
How is that possible?
So, and this was last week when I last saw it. But so one, we need to validate that this guy actually has $10 billion in cash.
Was his name like Chapo or something?
Well, but two, where did it come from? And there were rumors that it came from the Saudi government or somebody abroad to buy this sports team through this guy that no one had ever heard of. But then he's saying, no, my company's actually worth a lot, and I just sold it for, part for $10 billion. So
now I want to go read this story.
I'm kind of in it now.
I have $10 billion in cash just sitting there. I'm going to go buy a team. Why would he pay more than it's worth?
I don't know.
Yeah. I could see why people are like skeptical.
But $10 billion for a sports team, that sucks.
It's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, it helps when you don't have to pay for stadiums.
Well, no, he said he'll add $2 billion for the stadium.
Oh.
Yeah. For stadium improvements. But that is the crazy thing is, some of these states just bend over and say, oh, yeah, we'll pay for everything.
Yeah. No, I haven't seen the tax, I haven't seen their accounting to show why they think it's good business. I imagine they have pretty good rationale because if they didn't, I don't think they could get away with it. They have like a fiduciary responsibility, I feel like. But
that's giving politicians a lot of credit.
It is.
Yeah.
But in my mind, it doesn't make sense.
Mm-mm.
Now, granted, it's interesting. So I was looking back at the Cardinal Stadium. Cardinal Stadium was built in 2002, I think.
Yeah.
Somewhere about around there.
Sure.
It was like $350 million or something.
I know. And now every stadium's $2 billion.
I know. It's crazy.
Yes.
In 20 years, that construction costs have changed that much because, it was state of the art. Rollout field.
You still go there. You're like, this is a nice stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah. The field rolls out. The roof opens up.
Yeah.
It's comfortable.
Seating's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great stadium.
But it was, a sixth of the price of current stadiums.
But I feel like stadiums are also just kind of a flex. I think a lot of the price too was they built it out in the middle of nowhere.
Probably.
They built it out in farm fields.
It probably helped.
Yeah. And so like in Nashville, they're going to build it right next to the existing stadium in the parking lot of the current stadium and then demolish that stadium.
Where's everyone going to park while they're building it?
I'm not the logistics guy, so I have no idea. But that's the current plan is they're going to build it exactly where.
They should build it underneath it.
Yeah.
Just shore it up and just dig a hole.
Yeah. Yeah. Or slide the existing stadium out of the way. It will be nice though. I mean, as far as location's concerned.
It's a good location.
It's a good location. You have that one and then Bridgestone where the Predators play.
Yeah.
You walk out of the hockey game and you're on Broadway
where
you want to be after a hockey game.
Yeah.
It's pretty slick.
No, it is. Their stadium's probably better location than, was it Nissan Field? What's it called?
Nissan Stadium.
Nissan Stadium.
Yeah.
But
I'm actually going there today.
Or motocross?
Supercross.
Cross?
Yeah.
I saw that message on Slack.
Yeah, if you want to come out this afternoon. I don't know if you're doing
much. What kind of equipment do they have?
Probably a little dozer, an excavator, and I think they do most everything with skid steers. Maybe a loader.
Yeah. When you say little, like a D1?
Yeah, probably.
Which would be a D3, D4? D3, I think.
I would say so, but
Yeah.
I've never been. I've only seen videos, and I'm trying to recall by memory. But yeah, it wouldn't be a big machine.
It's funny, like the D2, which was the D4, we had one, and I feel like people always are like, oh, that machine's too small and stuff. It's like a really capable machine that's almost half the cost of a D6.
Yeah.
It's actually less than, it depends on which D6 you're talking about. But
Well, Shay and Aspen just bought a D1.
Yeah.
Because he's in these tight areas. He needs to grade in these tight areas,
Yeah.
but it's way too big for a grader,
Yeah.
even a small grader, like a
Yeah.
120.
Yeah.
So he bought a D1 and he's putting triple Grouser pads on it. So it doesn't mark everything up
Yeah.
as it works.
Yeah.
And he'll have 3D GPS on the machine.
Yeah.
So for his purposes, far, like the best machine possible.
Well, and even just like with cat grade control, like you have slope, right? So you could, even without anything,
Yeah.
you could put it at 0%,
Yeah.
0%. And if you're finishing pads, you could finish pads with that machine all day long.
Yes.
I'm a fan of it.
Yeah, I feel like just D6 though is like, you need a dozer, D6. You just hit the D6 button.
Now, on a big job site, a D6 is never too big, you know?
No.
So I get why. Like
Yeah.
if you're finishing basins, but I would say there's a lot of times you could be finishing those basins with a smaller machine.
They're on the site yesterday, 40 dozers.
Are there any D10s?
Yes.
Because they were pushing, right? They were pushing scrapers, I think. I saw.
Yes. They had a D10 push cat, a D9 push cat, open cab.
That's
California spec right there.
Was it PEDS?
No.
It wasn't?
No.
Okay.
Pete had the 657s. Plateau had the dozers because they run 31s.
Gotcha.
And they have 21s too, which you don't see very
No.
often.
They don't,
And
they
then-
don't even make 21 still, do they?
No, they make 31 and they make the 51 again,
Okay.
which is pretty cool. I
Yeah.
think that'll actually sell pretty well.
Yeah.
And then Patillo had their D10 T2 down there.
I saw that. You said you'd seen it in New York. and
Yeah,
it was down there.
it's funny when I see, their 390 was down there too. When you see the same machine in a different place, you're like,
Yeah.
where was I the last time I saw that machine?
Yeah.
Oh, I was freezing in New York.
Yeah. That picture of like them coming off lunch break was nuts.
Yeah.
That little video that you posted.
Yeah.
Oh, did you? That might have been on Slack.
Yeah, I put it on Slack. I'm
Yeah.
going to post it on the internet one of these days.
Okay.
But they probably had 70 trucks.
Yeah.
Articulated in rigid frame.
And so there was 777s, but was there like 775s or 773s?
Yeah, there were 775s and 773s, I think. And then just a ton of 45-ton trucks.
And then they had how many 390s? Or 395s? I don't know what they had.
Like roughly 5, probably 90-ton machines, 90-plus ton machines, a few 374s, and then just like 20 to 30 349s, 352s.
Oh, yeah. So 352s were pretty popular there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think that's now. I just had Ryan on the podcast, and I should have clarified this with him. I don't think the 349 exists anymore.
Okay.
I think it's the 350 and the 352 now,
I think you're right.
but I don't know.
We'll say you're right.
Yeah. It's all kind of the same machine, but I think the 352 just has the bigger undercarriage.
Yeah, it has the bigger undercarriage.
But it's the same machine.
Yeah, which I think it's good. Like Komatsu also did that. I can't remember what they called it. It was like the PC400 HD.
Yeah.
And it had the bigger undercarriage. And it was incredible the difference in balance you had just with that bigger undercarriage. Like it felt a lot heavier in the tail.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you don't have to add too much weight to it and spread it out a little bit more.
Yeah.
I mean, you get a lot more on there.
Yeah.
And the whole project was dirt, so they were just slinging, just flying.
So, and it was 10 million yards. They started last month.
Yeah.
So, what month are we in? April?
Yeah.
So it started in March and they have to be done in September.
Yes. Which,
That's
and
a
I
lot of
know
dirt.
like the mining guys will be like, oh, that's like child's play. But you have to understand it's a greenfield development. Your phasing is all over the place because they're telling you we need this first. So you can't just go in, blow and go.
Yeah, I mean, you have to get your basins in too because of
You have to get your basins in. Yeah.
stormwater.
Yeah. Access. And then these are compacted fills. So it's logistically very challenging to grade these sites. Not anybody can do it. And plateau, not anybody could just go, they're like maybe 2 other contractors in the Southeast that could go bid that job confidently just because of the schedule. Like, sure, I think a lot of contractors could move that material, but
that's quick.
Do it in just a few months.
I mean, that's like you're having to move like 1.5 million yards a month almost.
Yeah.
And if you figured even if 30 days, that's still 50,000 yards a day, right?
I feel like they were saying they were doing 6,000 loads a week.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's right.
I mean, that can make sense. I mean, it seems, well, that might make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, I was driving, you could see it from the highway. And so as I was driving up, all of the 349s and 395s were right there, and it was still dark. So they had the light towers, and I just drove in. I'm like, I've never seen this. I've seen big earth moving before, but the velocity of it I hadn't seen that.
Well, like in the West, you would see, in California, they have jobs like that. And California has big jobs, but
yes,
but they would be just all scrapers.
It'd be all scrapers, and it's like a landfill. So they're like, yeah, we need this cell 12 months from now. We're planning ahead. Whereas this one they didn't know about the job in December. And then it goes to bid, and then they're clearing, and they're full bore in just a few months.
Yeah.
Because of the way this federal money is moving around.
Yeah.
These jobs would not be possible without the federal money.
Yeah.
Because it's a battery plant.
Yep. Whether it's battery or microchips, they all
correct
have a subsidy that's helping.
Yes. And I think there must be a reason why they need it done so fast with that money.
Probably.
That's the only way it makes sense. Because it doesn't make sense to do these jobs this fast.
Yeah. I would guess that there's something about they have to have it done in a certain period of time to get access to some of that money or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. Or they want to do it within the current administration because they don't know what happens with the election.
Yeah.
Like the border fence, for example.
Yeah.
You come in, new administration just says, nah, we're just going to stop everything.
Yeah.
And so the contractors, I saw the border fence before that happened, and they were moving.
They were.
They were trying to get
they were
as
moving,
much
and then it
as they could.
stopped.
Yeah, and then they just turned it over to the lawyers and packed up.
I think that's still like out there, right?
I'm sure there's tons of material just laying out there. I heard there were machines sitting out there a year after. Big machines like D10s just sitting out in the desert.
You probably shouldn't say that. We're going to have like kids out there driving D10s in the desert.
Yeah, that's an effective way to get through the border fence.
That's just an effective way to have fun.
Yeah. I heard there was a job in Arizona.
Yeah.
I won't say which one.
Yeah.
They rolled a new D10.
Ooh.
Yeah. Gnarly terrain. Really gnarly terrain.
The bad day.
That's a really bad day.
Everyone was okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the machine was kind of fine.
Yeah.
But I don't think a machine's ever fine after you roll it.
Yeah. I wish I'd say that we never had rolled a machine, but I've seen machines rolled.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not fun. It's a bad day.
No.
So, yeah, one time this is probably like 10 years ago, we were cutting slopes, and we were cutting them with a motor grader, and what were these slopes? 2-to-1s, I think.
Mm.
And we were pulling the 2-to-1s down off like a 40-foot embankment. And so like you overbuild it, you compact, but then you leave like some fat on there. And it was just cutting it, and it had a windrow. That's kind of how it stays up on the slope. And it was like slow motion. Someone caught it on video, of course. And so like they're driving, and the embankment just was like soft. And so like the motor grader just like leaned over. The blade was on the ground, and it just like pushed into the embankment. And it was like slow motion, just
wow.
And it rolled over.
Oh, rolled all the way over?
All the way over onto this top.
Ooh.
Yeah, which was a bad day, but that machine actually was fine after it.
Really?
The operator turned it off right away. Nobody was hurt. And because it was so soft, the only thing that was even broke was a mirror. Like the cab, wow. Nothing was, because the ground was just soft because it was all that fat from the slope.
Wow.
So then we just had to get 2 cranes out and rig it up and flip it over, and then
send it off for a little bit of
let the mechanics get into it to make sure everything was good before we run it again.
Oh, wow.
So it happens to everybody. Like there's always like those people like, how could you ever roll a machine? And like, if you've been around it long enough, you've been on a job site that it's happened. And unfortunately.
Well, and I feel like a lot of the old time operators, I've been there. I've rolled machines. The funny thing, there was, I don't know if this is a perfect parallel, but there was this guy, there was this, I grew up in a place in Montana, and they had these family friends that, they loved aircraft. Mm-hmm. And they have they fight fires with helicopters and big helicopters like Chinooks.
That's cool.
And, the whole family's flown their entire lives. And it started with the old man, who was just a legend, absolute legend. And I feel like he'd crashed planes 30 times or something like that, like a crazy number of crashes. And I heard this one story where he was trying to rescue someone high up in the mountains. And the only way to get to him was to intentionally crash the plane. And I was talking to my friend's dad about it. I was like, I would never fly with him, somebody that's crashed a plane that many times. And he's like, no, I don't think you understand. He's probably one of the best pilots around because he's still alive after 30 plane crashes. That doesn't happen by accident. I was like, oh, okay. All right. I get it.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's how you learn.
It's crazy that that's insane. Helicopters are not nearly as forgiving as airplanes.
No, well, they had one of the kids get killed in a helicopter crash, and super talented pilot doing
doing fire.
I think seismic.
Okay, because fire is crazy too, because you get this weather conditions that are created by the fire, and that makes it that much more difficult.
Well, I think that's why they went into the Chinooks, because you have the two engines rather than just one.
So a lot of people don't know this, but so a helicopter, you have your blades, right? You may have one or two turbines that run those blades.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times people think like, oh, the only twin engine helicopters are ones that have two sets of blades or rotors.
Mm-hmm.
But Airbus, which it was Eurocopter, Bell, they all make a twin engine.
Sure.
Single set of rotors.
They're just really expensive.
They are. Yeah. Yeah, I think the Eurocopter 145 or EC 145 new is like $10.5 million.
But that's the go-to helicopter of any bad guy.
And billionaires.
And billionaires. Yeah, billionaires or bad guys, you can't have another helicopter. That's the gold standard.
It's funny because I'm part owner in a helicopter business, and we were looking at maybe getting an EC 145, but like used, like
sure,
20 plus years old. So we were trying to see if we could figure it out. So I found one, and it was like a 2004 or something, but it only had like 2,300 hours on it. And I'm like, this is probably a pretty good helicopter. So I call up the broker and I talk to him, and he's like, yeah, this is owned by a billionaire. This helicopter flies to the support yacht, not to the yacht,
sure.
The support yacht.
Yes.
And then once it flies to the support yacht, then they just like bury him over to the boat or whatever.
Yes.
And then he's like, and then it goes below deck and is stored inside the boat. Like, what?
I saw a boat like that in Maine. It was a huge yacht.
Yeah.
And then one that looked similar, but it was for the helicopter.
Crazy.
Yeah. That's how rich some people are. I don't want my helicopter on my main boat. That's crazy. That's where the pool would go.
Yeah.
Like if I have a helipad, I can't have the damn pool. So you put it on another boat. That's probably $100 million.
I have no idea. It's just, it just blew my mind that there was a boat big enough to have a garage for a helicopter.
Wow.
So needless to say, the price was too high for us to buy it.
Sure.
Because he took care of it so well.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy. It's just a different world.
It is.
It's a different world. I flew out of Savannah the other day, and at Savannah, you have all the Gulfstreams because Gulfstream's at the airport.
Yep.
Like the commercial side of the airport, it's kind of just like, all right, you guys kind of do your thing.
Yeah.
But the whole place is Gulfstream, like everything around it. And the amount of new Gulfstreams sitting outside of that manufacturing plant is just sickening. And those are 50, 60, 70 plus $1 million.
Yeah, I would say like cheapest Gulfstream you could buy might be 25, maybe.
Like, and that's the low end. That's like the real cheap interior, or probably no interior at that point. But I know like the G700 was 70 plus million. And then the rich people were buying them and then flipping them for another 10 or 20 million.
Oh yeah, so this is interesting because like the lead time right now on helicopters and jets new is like 2.5 years.
Yes.
And so if you want your plane, then you have to go pay a premium, I guess, from one of these people who already ordered it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it was the people that already ordered it. And they're like, well, they're the sensible ones.
Yeah,
like
$10 million off. Yeah. You can have the airplane. I'll give you. I'll wait. That's crazy.
Just imagine if that's one of the decisions you have to make in your life. You open up your portfolio from your executive team. Okay, so we have to make a decision here. I know you want this plane, but there's somebody that's going to buy it for $15 more million, and
Well, it's probably it's not that hard to imagine, because if you ordered yours 2 years ago, you probably have inflation on your side too, right? So
sure,
availability, but then also the price of the plane's probably gone up even.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm assuming like anything else manufacturing.
Yeah, but knowing a company like Gulfstream, they would just be like, hey, the price went up. It's actually this now.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you either pay it or get the hell out of there.
I have a friend who works for Boeing, and he was saying like they buy their parts in advance for like an entire contract. So
wow.
I
feel like you have to.
So like they would go to say the Apache, and they would be like, all right, we are under contract. We're going to be under contract with the government to buy, build 150 Apaches over 4 years. And they would go to all their vendors and be like, all right, this is the package. We need the price good for the 4 years. And that's how they would get those guaranteed prices.
Wow. Well, when I've been to some like the Caterpillar skid steer plant, for example.
Yeah.
When they were, the past few years, they've been really constrained. Everybody's been constrained in the manufacturing world.
Mm-hmm.
And they were explaining, it's like, yeah, we might have to shut down the plant for a day because we're missing this one bolt. And it's like, but I'm sitting there thinking, you're Caterpillar. You can't talk to the supplier and be like, hey, like we're Caterpillar, come on. But there's the truck manufacturers ordering 100 times more bolts than Caterpillar is. It's the same bolt. And so the supplier's like, well, we're going to go service these customers first because you're the small guy.
Yeah.
And you think, wow, that's different.
Or they're on allocation. Like, yeah. That's the other thing is people will just be like, hey, all of our customers are important. So we're going to have to cut everybody's order by 20%.
Sure. Which
still might mean you shut down.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me. Like, so when we were, I think it was John Deere's factory. Don't hold me to this, but I think it was John Deere. All of their cabs are manufactured by another company,
mm-hmm.
right? The whole cabs come in.
Yep.
And it's kind of cool. Like the cab, you don't realize this, but the cab doesn't change much in size no matter what machine you're in. But like the manufacturers of the cab, I think they only made like 2 or 3 size cabs for each like line. So like a wheel loader.
Yeah.
Like what's the smallest? 344?
I don't. Yeah.
A 344
around there.
Up to a 944. There was like only 2 cab sizes or something like that.
Yeah. I for Caterpillar, I feel like it's the same size cab from the 330 to the 395. It's the exact same cab.
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it makes sense.
But it would, because like you think about just your space. I mean, it might even be a 320.
Yeah, it might be smaller. Yeah.
Because the space doesn't change much in the cab. It doesn't need to.
No, yeah, on the big machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Until you get to mining shovels and you want to run a buddy seat.
Yeah.
That's the only downside.
But the 6015 probably has a different cab, because that was a purchase machine, right?
It probably has a different cab because it's kind of a different part of Caterpillar.
Yeah, remind me, who did Caterpillar buy that brought them the 6015?
O&K.
Is that who it was?
I feel like it's O&K.
If it's not, somebody will call you out.
They bought Bucyrus.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Bucyrus, that's what it was.
Who owned O&K.
Okay.
And so they didn't, but then they inherited kind of the 6015. But I've seen the original. It's way different from what they run right now. And then they had the 6018 that they painted yellow. It was a O and K that they painted yellow, and then they overhauled that into the 6020B. But I didn't know the 6018 existed until I went to Saudi Arabia, and I asked, "What do you have here?" Well, we have 6015s and we have a 6018. I'm like, what's a 6018?
Yeah.
And I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's just
funny.
Well, that's just an O and K painted yellow with cat on the side.
Gotcha.
Because that was just after the acquisition.
It's interesting. The 6015, like if you haven't been on a job with one, like I'm not sure if photos really help you understand how big that machine is.
No.
That machine is substantially bigger than a 395.
Well,
almost 100,000 pounds, I think.
It's a 349 bigger than a 395.
Yeah. It is a big friggin' machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we had one time running for us, and I think we had a 670, though a John Deere 670 on that same job site. And like, that's not a small machine.
There was a 6015?
Yeah. We ran a 6015.
Really?
Yeah.
Where was that?
At a landfill cell.
Oh.
It didn't run that long. It was while they were still figuring out the engine issues.
Oh, whose machine was it?
That was Rango's machine.
Oh, that's what I thought. That machine was a lemon.
Yeah.
I feel like they put multiple engines.
They brought it to us with a brand new engine.
Yeah.
And within 7 days, engine was down.
I heard that one was a particular lemon.
But when it was working, I was like, dude, this is crazy.
Yeah. But then because of that issue, they went with the 1200s.
Yep.
And now they have like
all 1200s.
Yeah, but I mean,
and they're mostly Hitachi, right? They don't really do a lot with the Komatsu, do they?
No, yeah.
I think it's almost all Hitachis.
Yeah, and then they run Komatsu trucks.
Yep.
They've done a little bit with Empire.
Yeah, they have the HD. Like they run the HD
785s, I think, the 100-ton Komatsu.
Yeah, they run that a lot. I feel like.
And then lots of Volvo 860s.
Oh yeah,
A60s. People love those mining contractors, or if you're moving a lot of dirt, we pair that with a 1200 or a big machine like that.
You like it?
Oh yeah.
I don't have any experience with the A60s.
You can't buy them because everybody has them ordered, and
which will be interesting because
they're hard to get.
It'll be interesting to see if anybody else decides to go play in that market.
I'm shocked. I was thinking Caterpillar was going to go make something. Bell has a 60-ton truck, but it's a different design.
So I actually talked to a contractor who had the Bell trucks, and they love them.
I've heard good things.
They're like, if it was that design, but it was, a better dealer, they're like, well, that's all we'd run.
Sure.
But the dealer support in their area is just not that great.
Yeah, it hurts. Yeah.
Because those are articulated. It's like an articulated rigid frame truck, right?
Yes.
It's like dual single axle.
I just don't know if it's difficult to transport. Because the cool thing about the A60, it's just like the way I put it is it's just hit the buffet line. It's like an A45 that's hit the buffet line like hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just been drinking Bud Lights, and it's just like a fat A45. It just that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
They just took the A45 and into their computer programming, like add plus, and then that's what they built. And it's like, if it works, it's just a bigger truck, but you can still throw it on a trailer and haul it down the road.
Yeah, I wonder what that weighs, because what's interesting is like there's lots of states where transport is so easy, and then there's states where it's a freaking nightmare. So I feel like A60s could be a nightmare in like Ohio, for example.
Yeah, well, and then and you've in some like I feel like Arizona is pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, California, even.
Yeah, even California, Utah, and Nevada, you can get away with a lot more weight. Yeah, they run those triple trailers.
Yeah, Utah and Nevada, they allow you to run that second trailer, not for transporting, but for material.
Yeah, but for material, everything has two trailers. Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll run a straight 40, and then they have it's like a smaller trailer. I think it's like 24 feet.
Yes.
So they get way more tonnage.
Way more.
Which is interesting. Like I've always wondered why they don't do that in more states, because it reduces the cost of your material significantly. Because now your power unit is carrying like an extra 15 tons, I think. Like that adds up.
Yeah. I have wondered that too, especially in a place like Texas when you have a lot of space.
Yeah.
Like why not?
Even most of
Colorado,
most of the West.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the West is pretty spread out. Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, Arizona.
California, they run the little baby belly dumps, 2 trailers.
Yes, the double bellies.
Yeah, but the little baby trailers.
Yeah, so those are interesting because at least in Arizona, those get a few more tons than a straight belly.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't know if it's because like where the axle spacing is, but I think you can get like an extra 1.5 tons or something like that.
Interesting.
So, and they're nice. Like we would use them on basements. So you couldn't get a straight belly in, and there's lots of Super 16s and Super 18s in the Phoenix market.
Yeah.
And so like getting those in, you could get them in, but you're carrying less tonnage in yards. So if you could get double bellies in, you could get more yardage. And when you're, hauling off 100,000 yards or something, it adds up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Ooh, not many people have the double bellies though.
Auto did.
InSearch?
Auto did. InSearch might have. Heritage probably did at one point.
Oh, yeah.
But they're not around.
That was one of my favorite things to do in Arizona was if I saw belly dumps, stream of belly dumps.
Follow
them. Yeah. Follow them. And follow the empty ones because I wanted to go to the loading site.
They would lead you to the...
Yeah. I didn't care about where they were dumping, but I always followed the empty belly dumps and they would lead you right to the hole, wherever it was.
That should be a shirt. Instead of like chasing the rainbow, it should be like chasing the belly dumps. And we'll like make them like arched.
I did that so many times over. So many times. But yeah, whenever Busing would be digging a hole, you guys would be digging a hole. There was that one big project at like the Ritz-Carlton.
Oh, yeah.
In Paradise Valley. They were hauling forever off that job.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like, I feel like with that much land.
As big as it was, you would have thought they could have balanced it better than they did.
They could have put it somewhere. Well, and then they screwed up the original basement. They had to redo all that work.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, the design was off. Yeah.
And that's an interesting part of the market or the valley because the dirt there is like marginal.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you can't get rid of it. You have to take it to the landfill or use it as general fill, but it doesn't meet structural fill spec.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's like right there. Kind of PI's a little bit high.
Do you have to pay to drop it at the landfill or they just take it?
Usually you have to pay. Yeah, usually you have to pay.
Interesting.
It's not like a dump fee like trash or inert landfill, but there's usually a dump fee. Usually taking it to like at least in the Phoenix market, usually taking it to one of the aggregate producers. And they're using it to help fill in an old cell from aggregates.
Yeah, that's right.
Because in Phoenix, the land's worth a lot. So usually they, over time, fill the cells back in and then remarket it.
There were some big jobs that they filled, like some big holes that they filled over the years.
Well, like that Johnson Stewart pit.
Where was that?
That's the one on Alma School on the 202, right by Bass Pro Shop.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's filling up quick.
Yes.
So we were set up there crushing for a little while.
Really?
And they plan to have that thing full in like the next year or two. That's a really cool story. So Johnson Stewart is the name of it, and Earl Johnson is like the old timer. So he was probably he'd probably be around 100 or something now. And when I first got started in the business, my dad would take me to breakfast with him, with Al Otto, and a bunch of like the old timers.
Yeah.
And we'd eat breakfast together. At the end of breakfast, there was a cup of dice, and you had to roll the dice to see who paid for breakfast. But he was one time telling me the story. He started that pit. That pit got because they ended up using drag lines in it. So, I mean, the pit got below the water table, and then they're running drag lines. So I'd say
it's really deep,
150 feet at least.
Yeah.
He started it loading his pickup truck by shovel. And then he just slowly got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then there's not a lot of landfills left in the East Valley now.
No.
For inert. And so they were getting between 400 and 600 loads a day at that landfill.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. And so they're just printing money.
Yeah. And they're filling it in, and then it'll be worth a pretty good sum of money. So.
Yeah. I'm telling you, the materials business is where it's at.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing with Arizona. It's all of the aggregate, sand and gravel. I mean, kind of comes from one belt all along the valley, along the Salt River.
Well, yeah, that or was it the Hacienda on the west side?
Yes.
But it's all dry riverbeds, no matter where, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. The when we went to see Fisher crushing for the I-17.
Yeah.
They were just digging out like a wash and loading an A60. And it was just like cobble, straight sand and cobble that they were then crushing for all the aggregate for the whole job.
The thing that's interesting is like, so the way that the material has settled in the valley is the Salt River used to flood. And so that sand and gravel is actually distributed below ground a long ways from it. So like we'd have projects. We had a project at the Broadway Curve. It was actually Building Sun's headquarters years ago, right there at the Broadway Curve. And we got the job, and it needed non-expansive. And we're like, hey, there's a good chance there's non-expansive or the sand and gravel. It's just down a few feet. So we potholed, and sure enough, it was there. And so we were digging ponds for that. There's a big pond there in the center of the Fountainhead complex. Yeah. And we just took out the material for the pond, and then we overdug the pond, 15 feet. We got all our non-expansive, then we filled it back in.
Nice.
And that exists like kind of, you'd be surprised how far north and south that can go.
Well, when you guys were doing that basement in Tempe.
Which one?
Like right on Mill.
Yeah.
Just 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, that was for Heinz.
Yeah, I feel like that was all you guys.
Mill.
Yeah, that's all that was there. It's not that far from Salt River, but it's still a little ways.
Well, we ran into like beach sand there.
Yeah. I feel like the material was terrible.
It was flowing sands. So when you're digging a 28-foot deep basement and you have flowing sands, it makes for some complex shoring. But it was a cool job.
Yeah, that was a cool one to see. Yeah, it was a pretty good sized basement.
That was the first time we saw the chin strap hard hats.
Yeah. We got thrown off that site by the GC.
Well, because you didn't have the hard hat or what?
I don't know. No, the guy, it was just, I don't know if he had a fight with his wife the night before or whatever it was. He was just not in a good mood. And we had done everything we needed to do, and he just kicks us off. And I called you, and I'm like, hey, we just got kicked off. I don't even know what just happened. And then you call me back 10 minutes later. Okay, you're good to go. and then we walk right by the guy that just kicked us off back into the site, and I just have a smug look on my face because he just got a call from somebody like, "What are you doing?" And we went right back and got back to work. Then it was one of the chin strap guys.
That's funny. I still look at those pictures because it was like a tinted visor. It had the built-in visor. It was tinted.
Yeah,
and it does look like something out of like Star Wars or something. Like it doesn't look normal, but. Man, I'm telling you, it's going to happen. We before I left Blount, we had our first contract that required our people to wear chin strap, hard straps. And then like they call out like the 2 or 3 manufacturers. You have to run one of those 2 or 3 manufacturers. It was a contractual requirement. And I think it's only time. We had another client who didn't require it, but they asked if we would consider running chin straps. And then they like strongly encouraged our safety people to be the example.
Yeah. So, that's how they get you.
Sooner or later, Aaron's going to be on a job site with a chin strap.
I don't know. I don't see them all that often.
Yeah.
I really don't.
I know, but like that's how like Stretch and Flex was. It starts with the big GCs.
Everything's pushed by the big GCs.
So once like you get 3 or 4 of those top 10 GCs that do it, I feel like then kind of the rest of the GCs feel like they have to, and then it just trickles down.
The thing with Stretch and Flex, I was thinking about this. I was running the other day thinking about annoying safety rules.
Yeah.
Like I typically do. It drives me nuts that, okay, hey, we have a lot of slips, trips, and falls. And especially like on, with equipment operators, what your number one injury is probably getting in and out of equipment.
I don't know, but it's probably up there.
It's up there. So the answer is, well, we need to stretch and flex. But let's not consider people's actual health and well-being. Like I jump on and off equipment. I don't worry about it all that much because I'm healthy. I'm good. I'm strong. I'm good to go, man. I'm not really at risk. But instead it's like, let's not actually think about the root problem here. And let's just hit the stretch and flex button. That covers us.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It might reduce it. It might help, but it's not at all addressing the root cause.
Yeah, I think what you're highlighting is like there's probably stability issues. There's probably fairly sedentary. That's probably why they have balance issues.
Sure.
even strength. Like, I think part of it's too just health is inside work and outside of work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a thing that's interesting in construction is like we don't do a good job when it's stuff that we feel like is outside of work.
Mm-hmm.
Like even I think mental health falls into this same category.
Yeah.
Like, well, let's try and control what we can here, but like, they're people, they can do what they want to at home. But I don't think we do a great job of educating on like, well, what could you do? So like, that's actually one thing I'm excited about. We're getting ready to do some content for the training platform
Mm-hmm.
that's going to cover some of these things that maybe don't get covered real well by the industry. And hopefully that's how we continue to honor our mission of making the dirt world a better place. We get to start pushing some of that content into the industry.
Yeah, well, we have, as we're speaking on this podcast, we're recording mental health on the other side of the office right now with Vince Hafeli from Ajax.
And we're working on, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say this out loud, but working on some training for nutrition and health.
Yes. With First Form.
This First Form. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know if I was allowed to say it or not.
I don't know either, but that's what I do. I just say stuff and get in trouble for it later.
Yeah. Which is super exciting. I've been able to be on some of those conversations and like the list goes on.
Well, you're teaching on financial health.
I'm teaching on financial health. So I've done some of it. I think we did like our first 6 lessons, our courses on it. And I think there's 2 or 3 more that need to be shot today and tomorrow.
Yeah. I think it'll be really beneficial.
I think when it comes to mental health, the biggest thing is like, we just have to normalize that it's okay. Like somebody hurts their shoulder and they come to work and like, they're like doing this. It's like, oh, what's wrong with your shoulder? Oh man, sorry to hear that. Hey, like, it's not a big deal. But for some reason in our society, and I don't think it's just construction, I think it's just our society.
No.
Like, it's not okay to say, hey, I'm in a bad spot or I'm having a tough time. Like I'm depressed. Like, I also think we don't even know. Like I was talking to my wife once. So, I had some like really challenging times running the business.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody taught me how to do it. I kind of was self-taught and I made some mistakes and some of the mistakes were really hard. And I remember, we lost our biggest project. There's a change in the administration and it stopped. The funding got stopped and we had like probably a half of our fleet was on this project. And it was supposed to run for 2.5 years. And so when we lost it, we had to go find more work like right now or we weren't going to survive. And when we did, we picked up some crappy work. And so when you pick up crappy work, it's not like it's just over.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 12 to 24 months to work through that.
Sure.
And I remember we were just getting our butts kicked in Tucson on a job. We were getting our butts kicked on a job in North Phoenix and in Tempe. We had these 3 jobs and they were kind of spread out by, about an hour each, from each job to each job. And so I left one project, went to go to the project and was going to help just make sure the night shift got started right. And then like the supervisor didn't show up or something. So I worked that whole night. At the end of shift, a guy in a water truck rolled it. So I had to help make sure it got upright, make sure the guy went and got his wellness check to make sure there's no issues, got his drug test, all that stuff. And then it was time for me to be at my meetings on Saturday. So I drive out to the next job on Saturday. That job's not going well either. I get home. I'm exhausted. I've been up for like 36 hours and I'm going to sleep. And I like lay down for just a second and then my wife wakes me up and she's like, hey, sorry, but there's a rattlesnake in the backyard. I needed to go take care of it. So I like walk out in like my flip flops and like underwear probably.
Just Arizona things.
And I like go out there and I'm like holding the shovel like, this is really dumb. Why am I out here with flip flops on in my underwear?
Yeah.
Hopefully this goes well. But I was just so tired and just so done. So I take care of the rattlesnake, which hopefully I don't offend anybody, but that was by killing it.
Yeah.
And got rid of it. And then, so it was just a really long day. So Sunday I wake up and like, I don't want to get out of bed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't even know how to explain what I felt because like, how do you know what depression is? Like,
Sure.
right? Like, I don't think, like, never felt that. But I remember telling my wife, like, for the first time in my life ever, I thought things like, what would everyone's lives be like without Randy? And I'm like, that's scary.
That's dark. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think just the fact that people know that somebody who has been successful, who have a beautiful family, I'm so blessed, I still got to that dark of a place.
Sure.
And that's okay. But
Yeah.
talk to somebody about it.
Yeah.
Get help, because that's how you get through it.
Yeah, it's I get why people don't talk about it though. It's easier said than done. I mean, even like
it's hard.
What I've struggled with over the past few months is last year was tumultuous, and then we had layoffs at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And I've felt a lot of shame after that happens.
Yeah.
But you don't want to talk about it because it's like, well,
you have to relive it almost.
Well, it's not even that. It's like, oh, so poor me. Like, I don't want it to appeal poor me. Like, oh, you're Mr. Business Owner. Everybody thinks I make a bunch of money and this and that.
You don't.
I don't.
I think we're the two lowest paid people in the company.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not quite, but close.
But within leadership, by a long shot.
For a long shot.
So I have all these emotions. I have this shame. It's been hard to process, but I haven't. I want to go talk about it, but then I don't want it to appear like I'm pandering or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so or stuff that has to deal with other people. Like, I've struggled with something over the past year, a little bit more than that, with a family member.
Yeah.
I want to talk about it badly.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't feel like it's fair to them.
Yeah, it's tough because, like, you have a bias, and so, like, if you talk about it, you don't want that bias to show through and negatively affect people's perception of that person.
Yeah, exactly.
So that, I mean, it's good that you're self-aware and that you care enough about that person. Hopefully they realize that,
Yeah. Well, yeah. Hopefully. But it's tough because it's like, I just don't, I process by talking things through, and I'm pretty open typically, but there's a few things that have weighed on me that I just don't feel like I can.
But is that like one of the ways that you feel like therapy helps, because you're able to at least talk to somebody?
Oh yeah. I don't know where I would be if I didn't have therapy over the past 3-4 years, and if I didn't have exercise every day.
Yeah.
I would be a mess. Like, I don't even know. I think that's partially why I'm able to be so patient, because I beat the shit out of myself first thing in the morning, and then the rest of the day I don't have a lot to get worked up. Like, I don't have the energy to get worked up.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I tell people all the time, like, I think people are like, oh, you like to work out because you want to be like big. I'm like, first of all, let me take my shirt off. I'm no example of like fitness here. I full on have the dad bod.
Yeah.
But the reason I enjoy exercise is what it does for me mentally. Like,
totally.
It grounds me. It like, when I was having that those dark times, I wasn't exercising, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, for me, it's like how I can work through my frustration, how I can, like, sometimes it's just listening to music, sometimes it's just put headphones in and not listening to anything. It like just clears my head.
Yeah.
It's exercises, and I think studies now are starting to show, like, it is hugely beneficial for mental health, right?
Yeah.
Outside of the physical, we all know it's good for you physically, but it's hugely beneficial for your mental health.
I think it's far better for mental health. Like, the physical benefits, that's a bonus, man. Like, it's a mental game. And if you think about how humans evolved, we didn't evolve sitting on the couch. Like, we had to do stuff. We had to work to get the calories we needed to even live.
Yeah.
We needed to survive. There was, we were in just a constant state of motion back in the day as we were evolving as human beings, as our mind was evolving. And now we're completely sedentary, the total opposite of how we've evolved. And so no wonder you have all of these mental health issues now, because people have been they have so much in them that's bottled up that there's no release on.
Oh. But it's just that's why, I mean, I think we talked about this when we spoke for AEMP, but we talked about how people generally rate themselves as happy in our industry, or they enjoy the work they do. I shouldn't say rate themselves happy, but they enjoy the work they do. And it's probably rooted just in that, right? Like
Sure.
you can see what you've done, and generally, although now maybe you're not actually running a shovel, you're still running controls, and like, I don't know, you're actually building something. And I think that's why there's so much enjoyment of what we do. Like, I haven't met somebody who works in construction who hasn't said, I helped build that, right? Like, there's like this pride that goes into helping be a part of building something with their hands.
Totally. Well, but the other side is construction has gotten comfortable in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And if you're running a machine all day,
yeah, you're sedentary.
Yeah, you're just as sedentary as anybody in the office. It's mentally draining. Yeah. Like if you run a machine all day, you're still exhausted. Like I don't want to diminish that, but from a physical standpoint, you're not.
If the fatigue's different, right? It's not like, it's not like loading a truck by shovel.
Yes.
They used to, or
yes,
some of that work. That's actually why, though. Like, I had a friend who recently, it was a Saturday before Easter, and he was, I saw he was working out on a job site, and I knew he didn't necessarily want to be there, but they needed sewer to this building, so their sewer went out, and so I went over and was like, hey, where are you at? And he's like, give me the address. He's like, why? I'm like, I'm going to help, and it was. I think at the end he's like, so you said you're coming to help, but I think you just wanted to do it. Like, I'm like, there's some truth to it. Like, hey, I wanted to help because I know what it's like to be at family stuff and have work get in the way. And I had a few hours free that there was no family stuff. So I'll go help you. But also, yeah, dude, it felt good. I got done and I was like, man, it felt good to like get in the trench, lay some pipe.
Just work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also get the side of things where it's like, if I just worked 14 hours, I don't want to go to the gym.
Yeah.
Or
sure.
if I have to start at 5, I'm not going to the gym at 3:30. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So I understand.
Oh, for sure.
Why so many people don't do that, because of the hours demanded. It makes it really difficult. Not to make excuses, but I mean, it's kind of a valid excuse.
It makes it hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, I think like when it comes to exercising, you have to find the balance. So if you're in the field and you are working lots of hours, exercising could look very different. Mm-hmm. Like it could be as simple as, we talk about balance and, core strength. Like it could be as simple as doing air squats, planks, some push-ups and sit-ups.
Yeah. 100 push-ups a day.
Yeah. Like I know it doesn't sound like much, but it'll make a difference, and it will get the endorphins going.
Yeah.
Kind of help you, feel better.
Or a 15-minute walk.
I right now I try to walk at least a mile a day, 1 to 2 miles a day.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So this is all I did. I started having high blood pressure, and it was like freaking me out. I'm getting close to 40.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh man, I'm getting high blood pressure. Remember, my dad died when he was 50.
Sure.
So like, I'm like,
but that wasn't from high blood pressure.
No, but still, like,
sure.
And my grandpa died in his early 60s.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
understood.
Gotta take better care of myself.
Less drinking.
Well, that's not really a problem for me, but if I did drink, yes, less drinking. Which is fun. It's funny because like I'm in construction, and it's just like people think like there's something like I'm an alien or something. Wait, you don't drink?
Yeah.
No, I don't. And when I was in Germany, it was worse.
I was just going to say, yeah, if you go to Europe, it's way worse.
Yeah. So like we were with Bauer, and
they take it personally.
Yeah. So we were at a restaurant, and they were like, what do you want to drink? I'm like, water. And they looked at me like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'll just have water. They're like, water's for washing your hands. Like, okay. I was like, well, I don't drink. And they're like, why? I'm like, for religious reasons, I don't drink. And they're like, they kind of, usually like people give you a break. If not, I tell them like my dad was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Because he was.
Yeah.
Before finding religion in his life, he was. And so that's always kind of scared me. But the best part is like at the end though. So they didn't really give up, because at the end they're like, all right, now it's time. We're going to have some schnapps, like with dessert or something. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. I don't drink. They're like, this isn't alcohol. This is medicine. Like, you just need a little bit. It'll help you sleep good tonight.
Yeah.
I'm like, it probably would, but no medicine for me.
It's when I was there with Zeppelin at Bauma, they say Grader Albee's coming with the grader. So he pulls up to the hall with his grader, and we have beers, and it was just one of those cool life moments. I don't know if I had a beer. I don't even know if I was drinking that day. I didn't drink very much because it was just so exhausting, and I didn't want to wear myself down further.
Yeah,
but it was cool because you're at Bauma, it's closed, and you're sitting there with this blue grader running with flashing lights and music going, and everybody's having a beer and they're putting it on the circle gear. And like their glasses of beer.
So they're like Steins, like
yeah. From the Zeppelin Hall. You're just like, this is amazing. This is cool. It's the culture is just so different. It was a cultural thing. It wasn't like, let's get drunk. It was just like, that's how this works. That's how people get together. It was a cool life moment.
Bauer said, this is a few years ago, but I want to say like within the last 5 years was when they finally stopped. You used to be able to have up to 2 beers on shift. In the manufacturing process. And I think, if I remember right, they're no longer to do that, but you might be able to still get a beer like at the facility. You just can't be during shift.
Sure.
Don't hold me to that. And hopefully Bauer doesn't get upset by me misquoting that.
Their alcohol policy, their beer policy. Going to the hours, there was something I posted the other day. It was about, I don't think I phrased it right. I made the mistake of attacking overtime, which was kind of dumb because it wasn't overtime that I was really trying. It wasn't my point about overtime. It was my point in like the total inflexibility of the industry and people just saying like, the hours are the hours. It just is what it is. And I think as these companies get constrained from a workforce standpoint, the go-to solution in a lot of ways is just work more hours, which makes overworked people more overworked. And in my opinion, less efficient, which is the opposite of what we need to do collectively as an industry. But it pissed a lot of people off because tons of people agreed, tons of people didn't agree. But it just highlighted, like, they were all saying, well, it just is what it is. I wouldn't even get jobs if I didn't work these hours. I understand that, but I think as the industry, collectively, we also need to ask ourselves, and I say ourselves, dirt world, well, not dirt world, how can we be just a little bit more flexible?
Yeah, so we might be opening another box of worms here.
For sure. And worms come in cans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can of worms.
Yeah, I don't know where you find boxes of worms.
Good point. I don't know where you find cans of them either. They always come in a styrofoam cup when I get them.
It's usually a styrofoam cup, yeah.
We're going to start saying that instead of can or whatever.
Styrofoam cup of worms.
I'm going to open a styrofoam cup of worms. Oh, that's great. I think what's amazing about humans is when you put constraints on us, we have a way of making things happen.
Sure.
You know, you think of like high jump, pole vault, you think of like the barriers in track and field of like, you can't run this, whatever. Like there's this thing that once that constraint's in place, we just have a tendency to figure things out. I think if we didn't just default to let's work more hours, I think we would find that we can be more efficient than we are in the industry. I think like you think about, hey, I'm going to go work an extra 10 hours this week, over 40 hours, you know, like, so, hey, I've worked 10 extra hours. I should get more production. I think a lot of studies show you don't get, 10 extra hours of production.
Yeah.
But when you look at how hard would it be instead of laying 600 feet of pipe today to lay 660, I think there's a path to that 10% increase. Or instead of moving 1,000 yards, move 1,100 yards. I think there's a path to do that. But we don't always want to put the time in to plan that out. I think we've talked about this before, but like morning huddles are generally like just telling. Like, hey, this is what we're going to do today. Like, there's not a discussion and a plan and a contingency.
Yeah.
Like, we could get productivity without having to work extra hours, in my opinion.
But I think it's going to take some solidarity as an industry. I think it's going to take some courage as an industry, because I think there's a lot of pressure from outside forces, from the government, from general contractors, from project owners in general, wanting more and more.
I completely agree. We were on a project, and I would have this conversation on a regular basis with their executives. The project had a very worker conscious program. So they did a lot of things that was to improve the working experience for, craft. But they still expected everyone to work 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
Like, you want to improve the craft life? Don't expect things to be done with working a 60-hour week. Like, but it's hard because, like you said, the money flows that way. And so it's hard as a contractor to say, like, no, we're not doing it.
Sure.
And, for us, we couldn't say no, we weren't doing it, but we worked hard to make sure that every other Saturday somebody had off. And like, it wasn't, hey, we're taking a complete stand, but we could at least try and move the pendulum a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, courage doesn't mean you have to flip the bird and say we're not doing it, but hey, start having the conversations about how do we get our people home to see their families. I don't know about you guys, but my Saturdays are pretty full.
Yeah.
And if I miss, Saturdays and Sundays, I'm not seeing my family a whole lot. So.
Which then degrades potentially your family life.
Yep.
Which then degrades your mental well-being, which then degrades the quality of your work.
Yep. Probably hurts your sleep, like lots of things.
Everything. Yeah. I think the industry needs to be a little bit more open-minded. And there's other industries that have figured this out. Like I was thinking about nursing. Like this typical schedule a lot of times is 3/12s. It's not a perfect parallel, but a hospital runs 24 hours a day. Okay, cool. If that's the constraint, how do we work within that constraint? And they've come up with this schedule. Or firefighters. Okay, you work 3 days on, but then you have 4 days off. Mm-hmm. That's why nurses and firefighters don't make as much typically, but they like the lifestyle. Yeah. I get 4 days off. Sure, I'm going to trade 3 days totally on sleeping at the fire station for 4 days off. And I know that's not how every fire department works, but.
Well, but then didn't Chick-fil-A just did this too on a store?
Really?
They advertised for, it was like a test pilot, and it was like 3 13 or 14-hour day shift. I think it was 3 14-hour shifts or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
They had 1,000 applicants because people were like, I can work 3 days a week.
Sure.
I think it was 13.
Yeah.
I can work 3 days a week and have 4 days off. Like, flexibility that gives people is pretty incredible. Now, there's probably arguments to say, well, can you be productive for 13 hours straight? Well, in construction, we do that all the time already. So,
yeah.
The thing that's interesting is there would probably be efficiencies gained, right? Because now you could potentially work, 50% more hours with the same amount of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would drive down your equipment ownership costs because you'd be able to put more hours on it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. That's why a lot of people make the argument for overtime. They're like, well, yeah, my labor costs me more, but my equipment costs me less. So it's a wash. That's what I hear all the time.
Sure. Is that true?
Kind of. It depends on how you cost your equipment. And that's like a whole bag of worms this time.
Yeah. There's a lot more worms coming down the pipe there. Yeah, I don't know. It's easy for me to sit outside of the industry and, hey, we should think about this, guys. But I also see a lot of the industry. And I think a lot of people say, you won't ever get it. Yeah, I won't ever get it. I don't run a construction company. But at the same time, I get it big picture a lot better than I feel like a lot of people just working in their company in Central Idaho, for example.
Mm-hmm.
They're just in Central Idaho. They don't ever see work in Georgia. They don't ever see work anywhere else in the United States typically, other than social media, which is not all that accurate a lot of times.
Yeah.
And Yeah, I don't know. I had a job offer out of school from the company that I wanted to work for. Absolute. There was, it was the offer. Nothing was wrong. I was going to go work on the coolest projects ever. Life would be grand. But I didn't take it because I knew that I would be selling my life to that company for however long I worked for them. It wasn't really the hours. Like, I work more hours today than ever before. I work 7 days a week, nonstop. I love what I do. But I knew that they would absolutely own my life, and I didn't want to be a part of that.
Yeah, by that you mean you'd have to go wherever they wanted you to when they wanted to.
Whenever they picked up the phone, said, "Hey, you're going here," you either listen or you find another job. It's just, hey, we're working nights, we're working weekends, and then, you know, you get put on salary. When you start out, you're like,
yeah, don't do the calculation.
I know people in the field, yeah, they work a lot of hours, but a lot of times the people in the office are working more hours. Like the project, like an overworked project manager, like the hours they put in on some of these jobs, especially a job that's backwards, like that's hemorrhaging money, and then the stress on top of that, it can be gnarly.
Yeah. I mean, this wasn't always the case, but the truck drivers sometimes would come in and I would get there. So our transport drivers showed up early. And so they'd be like, you know, we're here at 3:30 this morning. What time did you leave? And it'd be like, 3:30 to 6:30. Days like that weren't uncommon in the office.
Yeah.
And it's different work.
It's different. Yeah, it's different.
There's goods to it because I could also be working and be driving my son. I could be on a conference call driving my son somewhere, and they didn't have that flexibility.
Sure.
So, not poor office workers, but I think everyone works hard.
Hard work's hard work. That's where the pride bites the industry in the ass. I feel like a little bit is my work's more valuable than yours. It's like,
or just like since I worked that hard, you should work that hard. Like,
yeah,
I put in the time. You need to put in the time now.
Yeah, exactly. One of the examples that someone brought up was their fuel and lube, and they get done early. They did everything they need to do. Hey, can I go home early? No, find something else to do.
Yeah.
Well, why can't I go home early? Like I did my job.
Yeah.
But and so even people that are doing their job, so that person's not incentivized to do any better, be more effective.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so if I'm stuck here anyway, I'm just going to take my time. Of course, I'm going to stop by the gas station extra time.
I had this policy, and it was probably not super liked, but my policy was if you're a supervisor, you're on salary. That included foremen. And it was for this very reason. I wanted my foremen not to be incentivized to work Saturdays. I wanted them to be mad that they had to work Saturdays.
Yeah.
Because I wanted them to do everything they could to find efficiency, not just put in hours.
Did that work well?
I mean, we were significantly more profitable than the industry.
Yeah. So you always had your foreman on salary?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah. I felt like if you're keeping track of time, which our foreman helped with time, and you're helping manage production, then in my mind, that you should want to make the company as profitable as possible, which is generally not working overtime and finding a way to get the work done within a standard shift. And so that's what we did. It wasn't always popular. There was definitely people who came into our company who were part of the overtime culture, and they had a really hard time with it. And we also had a pretty good bonus program. And there's a lot of people who didn't believe they would get the bonus, right? And so they had experiences where they never got it. And so it would take somebody working at our company and getting that bonus to really get bought in, I feel like.
Was the bonus based on company profitability?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't do it on job. Some people could pull that off, but we did a lot of commercial work. And so you might have multiple foremen on a job, and it was too hard for us. So we just said, we want everyone to be incentivized to make the company go well. Like we all win together.
I think that's better too than the job a lot of times, because sometimes you could bid something wrong.
Yep.
And then it's put on the foreman as like, well, so you dealt me a terrible hand, and now this is the hand I have for the next 16 months.
Yeah.
And it could be pretty demotivating.
Well, and then if you, nobody wants to go there. right?
Yeah.
Because they know it's the bad job and
Yeah.
can affect their bonus. So our hope was just like, even on bad jobs, like loss reduction. So like, how do we minimize our loss? Like, that's a big deal.
Sure.
I know a guy who worked for Odebrecht. I think they're a Brazilian company.
Mm-hmm.
And he got hired to go to a dam project, and his bonus was solely based off of loss reduction.
Wow.
So it was like, hey, we're going to lose $20 million on this dam. You'll get 10% of the savings or something.
Interesting.
So he always would, he was German, and he worked for this company. Maybe it was a German company. I don't know. But he always would say, yeah, I got my check and I went and bought my Jaguar right after that job. Really thick German accent. He was a cool guy.
But that was one of the other points I made with the overtime thing is you adjust your cost of living sometimes to an inflated schedule, working a lot of hours. And it oftentimes becomes golden handcuffs for these guys. Like I talked to two guys the other day. One of them was on the pipeline. He said he was making $250,000 a year. The other guy was doing HVAC work for $10 an hour. They're both broke. Yeah, it's if you're young, you've never had that kind of money before. You've never seen that kind of money before. You have no financial skills whatsoever. You're probably going to go spend it all. And then now your cost of living adjusts to that $250,000 a year.
Yeah.
But you're working, 80 plus hours to make that $250,000. So it's either you lower your cost of living, but oftentimes that's not even possible now that you have this mortgage and this RV loan, this truck loan, and you have all of these payments that you got to make. And you're just stuck there now.
Yeah. Like, outside of the overtime thing, and I don't want to dive into it too much, but like, that's why budgeting is so important. Like my wife and I, we watched, like I made six figures, but low six figures, like $100,000 to like $125,000 a year for probably a decade.
Yeah.
And I didn't take company draws.
As the owner of the company.
Yeah. Didn't take, or vice president or owner.
Yeah.
Didn't take company draws or anything like that. But we still were able to pay off. We had no car payment, and we paid off our condo that we had, a small house, because we really believed in budgeting and making your dollars work for you. And it's interesting. We would always talk about how we had all these friends who would go and do all these things and have all these toys, and how we couldn't understand it. Well, then like we hit our early 30s, and then all of a sudden like we had no debt.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, now we have freedom.
Yeah.
But it's like that delayed gratification. It's hard. Like
Sure.
It was hard to watch everyone else have all that, doing what we thought and believed was right. But then finally it was like, like I think it was like probably 32. All of a sudden I'm like, oh, this works.
Yeah.
So I've been working since I was 17. And finally felt like it was paying off.
It is mentally taxing though.
Yeah.
I'm 28 years old. Everybody's buying houses and nice houses, and I'm sitting around. One, I don't really envy it, but I'm just sitting around scratching my head like, how do they afford a house like that? How does the math work? Because I know what they make. I don't know how that's possible financially. Like, I make what they do. I could never even think about it. And I know I'm in a little bit different of a situation, but at the same time, like I don't pull anything from the company. Yeah. I'm living in like a 450 square foot apartment above somebody's garage right now. Like I don't ball out. I don't at all. And it's hard to watch the other people, everybody else around you. Oh, we just did this to the house, and oh, we just did this remodeling. You're wondering, how the hell did they do this? I don't know how the math works. And then it is obviously debt. That's how they do it. It's not their money or their parents' money or whatever it is. But
yeah, usually if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense.
There was a meme that it was like, it was somebody getting their first mortgage with the banker. And they're like, so you mean you can loan me this amount of money and there's no possible way I'll ever pay this off? And they're like, yeah. They're like, how does that work? We don't know. And they're like, I don't know either. Like everybody's like, we have no idea, but, and they're laughing about it. Like, that's kind of it.
It's kind of like sovereign debt. I always think that we all these countries, we trade each other's debt.
Yeah.
And it's like, are any of us ever going to pay each other back?
I don't know.
So weird.
Yeah. Well, and that's the scary thing with with China and with Russia and with the Saudis trying to sell oil and not the US dollar.
Yeah.
That is a slippery slope, because I think our debt is worth something because it's based on the US dollar.
Yeah. That's actually become a pretty like big talking point lately, I've heard.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see if there's really much traction there. And the reason being is like, so the yuan has always been pegged to the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just, whatever happens to the dollar, they just keep that exchange rate the same.
Yeah.
If they want to be the currency that is, for trade, they have to stop doing that.
Sure.
And that's hard to do because now all of a sudden your currency can fluctuate in value without much of your own control. And I'm not sure the Chinese can get behind that.
Well, and I don't think they can really even pull that off with their debt load either.
Yeah. So I guess Russia recently wanted to they put a bunch of money in, a bunch of rubles into yuan, and then they wanted it back or something. I was reading this story. So don't fact check me on this because I'm probably wrong here. But I guess Russia went to redeem back to rubles, and China was like, yeah, well, this is the exchange rate. They lost billions supposedly.
Wow. So. But it is crazy though, these countries trying to circumnavigate the US dollar at scale for really the first time, largely because we put these sanctions on Ukraine, these all financial sanctions. We played our hand once. You can only play it really once with a country like that. We've shown our entire hand, and now these other countries are like, how can we circumnavigate this? So if in theory we're sanctioned, we're fine. Get the hot air. Not spooky.
It is, but it's like I'm not alarmed. I think there's a lot of alarmists about this, but to me it's like, one, that can't happen overnight, and two, we've been the premier currency for trade for at least 60 years, probably more.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason. It's because we are a stable country, and we've proven time and time again that we will let our currency change in its value, that we're not going to manipulate it. And that's what people want. When you're dealing in multiple currencies, you don't want to have to worry about manipulation.
Well, so now there's this whole other theory about manipulation of the currency to force the digital currency.
Yeah.
Devalue the dollar to essentially, well, we're just going to keep devaluing over here to push everybody in this direction.
Yeah.
Which you can kind of see that happening. I don't know if it's strategic or not, but it makes you think like, that is interesting. I don't know.
I don't know enough about it.
All right. Well, I gotta pee.
Okay. We'll break there and then start again, or?
Yeah. How long have we been going for? Yeah, I think we can go a little longer and then just cut this episode in 2 parts.